The third way we avoid responsibility for our feelings and abandon and reject ourselves is we turn to various addictions to numb out, whether it's substances, whether it's activities. There's so many. There's food, alcohol, drugs, nicotine. There's TV. There's sports. There's gambling. There's sex. There's pornography. There's work. Anything that we use, even meditation, anything that we use to avoid feeling our feelings becomes an addiction, a way of abandoning ourselves. And so let's say you're feeling upset about something and you just surf the channels. Well, that's again like a child, comes you upset, and instead of attending to the child, you're watching TV, surfing the channels. That child's going to feel abandoned by you and might get anxious or depressed. Now, the fourth way is that we make other people responsible for our feelings. We blame them. It's like, again, let's say you have a child, and instead of wanting to love that child, you're looking for somebody else to give the child to. Now, even if somebody else, like I said last night, even if somebody else loves that child's going to feel rejected by you, abandoned by you. So even if somebody else actually loves you, as long as you're making that person responsible for your happiness and well-being and sense of worth and safety, that inner child, which is your feeling self, your soul, your essence, is going to feel abandoned and rejected by you. That's going to create anxiety and depression. So this is one of the major causes. And then, if people take a medication, they are further numbing out their feelings. Now, like Chris says, the medication has horrible side effects. And so not only does it have horrible side effects, but it's another way of abandoning yourself. Instead of learning how to attend to your feelings and learn from them and take care of them, it's another form of self-abandonment. Now, stress, as many of you know, is a major cause of illness. And physical and emotional self-abandonment causes so much stress in the body. When you learn to ignore your feelings, when you stay up in your head, when you judge yourself, when you let that ego mind take over, you are causing a lot of stress. And as many of you know, most of the doctors say that 90% of the patients that come in ill, they're stressed. They're very stressed. You look around at our society. Look at how upset and stressed people are. So this lowers our frequency. This makes it very, very hard for us to access this divine guidance that is here for us. So the challenge is to move out of that wounded self, out of that ego, and down into our heart and soul. But how do we do that? So that's what I'm going to be teaching you today. So, thank you. So inner bonding is a very, very powerful 6-step process. This is what came through from Spirit 35 years ago. I have been practicing it. And, many of you have said, how do you look the way you look at 80? And I always say there's three pillars. One is how you take care of yourself emotionally, and this is where inner bonding comes in. The second is what you put in your body, and the third is exercise. And when you see, here's the thing: when you learn to love yourself, which is what this is about, it becomes easy to eat well. Because you love yourself. It's like if you have a child that you love, you want to feed them well. You want them to get enough exercise. There's no resistance when you love yourself. And so when you learn to love yourself, the resistance, the procrastination is actually gone. You want to do what's loving to you. And this is what practicing the inner bonding process is all about. And I've been doing this now for 35 years. I work with people all over the world, on phone, on Skype. We have many, many trained facilitators who work with people. I do workshops, I do courses, I do 5-day intensives. There's many ways on our website. There's many free ways to learn this process. And with the books that are out there, which I'll be happy to sign at the end, you can learn this really incredible process. Okay, you have papers there, and I'm going to go through them to help you understand. So I'd like to start with some definitions. You have a couple papers on your seat there, and if there's not enough, please share them with somebody. See if you can share them, because I think they printed up 150 and there's not enough. Just see if you can. But anyway, you can use this as well. Okay, I'm going to do just some brief definitions so we're all on the same page. When I talk about the core self, there's a lot of words for this. The core self, the true self, the inner child, the essence, the soul. It all means the same thing. It's who you really are, the spark of the divine that is within each of us. And as I said, the wounded self is the part of us that has absorbed so many hundreds of false beliefs about ourselves, about others, about spirit, about control. This part of us just wants to control everything. Wants to control our feelings, believes we can't handle them, wants to control others and how they feel about us, wants to control outcomes, which we actually can't do. So this part of us is all about control. The loving adult is who we are when we're open to learning about loving ourselves. It has to start with ourselves. We got to learn to fill ourselves up with love, to see and value ourselves, and then we can share that with others. This is not about being selfish and self-centered and just being focused on ourselves. That's not actually loving to ourselves at all. This is about learning to see and value and take responsibility for ourselves, for our health, for our well-being, and then we are in a position to share our love with others, which is the most glorious experience in life, is the sharing of love. Whether you're sharing it with a partner, or you're sharing it with a child, excuse me, or you're sharing it as a volunteer, you're sharing it to help others, it's the most wonderful experience in life. Unfortunately, a lot of people who volunteer, they're not full of love. They're volunteering in order to get love. They're volunteering in order to get approval. And the energy is completely different. We can pick up the energy of somebody who's full of love, who's coming from love, and just get so much joy out of sharing it, and somebody who's doing it in order to get approval, to get validation, to get love back. It feels completely different. And the only thing that's really healing is when we share love from a full heart and soul. And in order to do that, you've got to learn to love yourself first. It has to start with that. If you're abandoning yourself, you're creating an emptiness inside. You're creating an emptiness that's like a vacuum. And so when you're with somebody, that emptiness wants to get love. And I'm sure many of you have had the experience of feeling drained when you're with somebody. Somebody who's an energy vampire, somebody who's empty and trying to get you to fill them up. It doesn't feel good. But this is because they're abandoning themselves, and they don't realize that that's what's happening. And they think the only way to feel filled up is by something external to them, whether they fill up with food or somebody else's attention and approval. It's external. This is about learning to fill yourself internally, because we all have a source of love. That's this divine connection. What we live in is unconditional love. And so when you learn to tap into it, and you learn to take responsibility for your own feelings, then you can fill yourself up with love.